Thank you, Jeff, so very much. And I would like to now
Welcome.
open up the discussion for the Sangha. Thank you again. It was nice talk. I always need to be reinforced with these thinking ideas about wholesome and unwholesome, and that's why we practice. And it's nice to have been reminded this morning.
Thank you.
Michelle bowing in. Jeff, thank you for the approach that you took in going through the topic. I always learn something from when you present, comment, participate, just be, right? It just goes without saying. But in the spirit of thinking about the actual skill of providing a Dharma talk on a topic, a couple of things really strike me with your approach, and today was no different. The use of props is always it's always fun for me because I'm never that creative, right? So for me, I'm like, oh, that's really good, I should jot that down, but I don't think stealing's allowed, but
It's okay, borrowing.
Exactly. But the one thing that really strikes me often and struck me very much today, and I wanted to share, is the adeptness at which you have one topic, that you set off weeks ago and said, this is my topic, right? My one thing. But you have this wonderful ability of connecting it or weaving it into the other components that exist in practice. And the reason why I think that's very important is because some of these things can be more or less complicated for people to understand. Myself in particular, right? When we enter any practice, whether we're new at the practice or have been doing it for eons, there's still so much to grasp, right? And there's still so much to unlearn and relearn and just, reconnect with. And I think what strikes me as very valuable in your approach is just to even say, like, the precepts are something that seems so simple, right? Because depending on where you are in your headspace when you come in, there are rules, there are guidelines, there whatever mental construct you put around them, but they seem to be the very first thing that people can kind of grasp, right, in a practice. I know it was for me, and maybe that's because I came from another faith background where there were rules and they had consequences, and it was kind of frightening. But what was interesting to me is that I can spend, like, I looked at your topic ahead of time, and I can go off and start thinking about, right effort, and forget about the fact that the pieces that I can hold on to just a little bit to help ground me and build my understanding of that right effort, I can tend to disconnect them, even though overall we talk about things being interconnected. Even those concepts are interconnected. So I just wanted to say you did a very, very nice job of tying this topic into various components of practice that make this conversation accessible for everybody. Because there's an entry point, maybe a piece doesn't make sense, but then there's another entry point where it would for somebody. So I would encourage you to continue to do that, in how you think about things. It also helps my analytic brain too, because, to be honest, from the very beginning of practice decades ago, my first thought was, if I had only a flashcard and they all had little lines and squiggles and I knew where they were related. But you were able to do that with words and your own experiences bringing in. So I just want to say that was very, very skillful, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. And just to comment, I mean, I definitely am happy when I do realize some of the connections. In particular, I was like, geez, this when I started to realize, this sounds like something that's in our precepts, watering positive seeds. And I went and looked and said, oh yeah, it's right there. It's got both. But I was also conscious that this is a recording and that perhaps not everyone who may watch would be at the level of this audience, having studied for years. So I wanted to try to give, the linkage to the basics, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, and if they were familiar with the precepts to those. So thank you. I'm glad that worked.
There were several things in there that I appreciated, Jeff, and actually today in particular, I appreciate your very calm presentation of everything, your gentleness of your voice and everything. Appropriate for me today.
Thank you.
And that interconnectedness piece that Michelle was speaking of, and I was thinking about that because sometimes I struggle with a thing that I struggle with is doing kind of what you just did, Jeff, which is to be able to show those interconnections, but do it in kind of a linear presentation way. And for myself and for people that know me in the groups that I do and the presentations that I do, I love a whiteboard. Then things come up and something goes here and something goes here, and I get very animated with a whiteboard and can start drawing out connections and this, that, and the other. But for me, it's a dynamic process that happens in the moment with the discussion that's happening in the moment. But for me to be able to do that like ahead of time, and then to be able to put together like a presentation or set of slides, that can be a much, much more challenging experience for me. So I really appreciate when I see others do that, and it can kind of anchor me and re-inspire me back to that place. I also, right effort actually is one of my favorite things to come back to, because there is always that reminder of the 4 steps in there: preventing the things that haven't come up, abandoning the things, the unwholesome states that have come up, cultivating wholesome states, sustaining wholesome states. All those things are very relevant to our lives and to the work that we might do, and healing from different kinds of suffering and working with different kinds of suffering. And for myself in my own practice, and also for others that I work with, I see how challenging it can be, profoundly challenging sometimes for some people, but also how important it is to keep coming back to just keep doing the effort in this moment, doing the effort in this moment with what's here in this moment. And working with, I appreciate that one of your slides was the slide with the storehouse and the mind consciousness. And, whatever has arisen from store consciousness in this moment is what's there for us to work with. And, it's not all about fixing all the things here or being right here in this moment or being perfect or whatever. It's all about just working with what's arising in this moment. And, that with that, for the 4 parts of right effort. Something a specific thing that came to mind as you were speaking was somebody that I know that I've known for years and worked with for years. And she's been very challenged with the relationship with her sister. And this person has done a lot of work with identifying some of her own patterns in that, and some of the things, just working with different ways to try to break this dynamic with her sister. And she was feeling really stuck. And then about a month and a half ago, some things, like all of a sudden everything shifted and she was there. And it's like, it's like that 100th time when you get it, but you couldn't have gotten it without all the 99 other times before that to get there. And that's a reminder with effort too, is just keep doing the effort. I probably had some other things from your talk today too. I wrote a bunch of stuff down, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Yeah, I think that the observation of to work with what arises in the moment is something I didn't emphasize, but is crucial. To be mindful in the moment, and perhaps also hold some of these ideas about promoting positive seeds and helping to calm negative ones, but to be in the moment and to work with what you have in the moment. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, I might share a little bit. Thank you so much, Jeff. Really thought I think it was a great talk. I liked the way that it was seemingly uncomplicated, just straightforward presentation, not too complex, because there's no need to make it complex. This is very deep nonetheless. So thank you for presenting it so clearly. I think maybe I developed a little bit more a new way to look at the precepts. I think there's always this conditioning, kind of cultural conditioning, in our Western society, that the precepts are really just a list of 5 thou shalt nots. But wow, so there are a bunch of don'ts in there, and I understand the reason for those, because you don't want to cause unwholesome things to arise, so better not do them in the first place. But there are an awful lot of do's in the precepts also. So I think in the private, while nobody's watching later this afternoon, I might reread the precepts myself and just put a little check mark next to all of the do's. So it's a really nice thing. Really, so thank you for that. The other thing that I found really helpful was, we oftentimes look at the precepts as personal. These are the things that I should be watching out for within myself. But there is, there is a lot of direction in the precepts as it relates to other people. Do water good seeds in other people. Help them to diminish suffering when it has arisen. So, these precepts aren't just for me, but they're for other people also. So wow, 2 new kind of dynamic aspects to the precepts I hadn't formally appreciated so much. The number of do's that are in there and how it relates to other people. Last thing I'll share is that this is also very timely for me. So I have one son right now who's been kind of suffering with some depression and anxiety. He's just kind of suffering. And the lines of communication, he just wasn't really open to talking much. But yesterday did have a nice talk with him, for kind of a deeper talk for about an hour. And I was all kind of caught up in, things are kind of a mess right now. How can I help you to make some of the unpleasant things that have manifested diminish? And, I'm doing it very non-judgmentally, and, talking about there's self-judgment isn't going to help. Blaming isn't going to help. All of these things. So basically getting those arisen seeds to go down. But what I neglected was watering the positive seeds and how therapeutic that can be. So I think I might try to initiate a round 2 and see if I can do some positive seed watering, because sometimes, that might be kind of a direction, an angle that might really be helpful. But I'm like, the typical mansplaining thing. I'm going to fix this, and even if I try to do it as skillfully as possible, while watering positive seeds, that can really also be really helpful. So I'm going to try that. And probably it wouldn't have occurred to me had I not listened to your talk today. So thank you so much for that. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Ted.
Ted, if I may briefly on that, I tend to be a fixer. You know, I want to find a solution and fix it. One of the things, so there's a video, and any of y'all could check this out. It's called, you can find it on YouTube. It's called "It's Not About the Nail," and it's actually, the gist of it is that the nail is the problem, and somebody's complaining about a headache because she's actually literally in the video, she has a nail stuck in her forehead, and she's complaining about the headache, and the other person is the guy in the video is like, well, there's a nail, I can fix this, but he's not hearing her, like, her state of mind, her feelings, and her concerns. And I'll share that, watch the video, get out of it what you get out of it for yourself. But for me, it's a reminder, yeah, actually, sometimes there are these problems that we can fix, like we could totally remove the nail, but also it's about just hearing what's going on for somebody. And so what I wanted to say with that is, you being open and willing to just be present with him is probably the single most important and powerful thing you can do. And that also comes from somebody who's been on the inside of depression myself, and just connecting and talking. Honestly, sometimes the best thing is it's just a casual talk about whatever, and it's not even about the problem. It's just connecting with somebody else, and that's absolutely profoundly beneficial.
Bobby bowing in. Jeff, your presentations are always wonderful, and you know, this one too. Nate's here to say so. I agree with everything everyone said about your voice and your depth and your preparedness. And while you were speaking, I really appreciated the pace that you carried. It was just so easy to keep breathing and relax and listen and let it soak in. And it was charming. That's the wrong word. Well, it was, I really
That's
enjoyed
Thank you.
it. Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah. And you know what, like, I thought, okay, right effort, good subject, but you know, as you spoke, it just became more and more apparently profound and important, and the depth of it, and everything about what you did, I loved. And what came to my mind, a couple things came to my mind. But one, let me go over. One was years ago, I was practicing in a Vietnamese temple, and I don't know, my state of mind was all anxious or not great. And I expressed that to one of the people next to me. You know, we'd all sit very crowded on the floor, it'd be me and everyone else seemed to be Vietnamese. But they would listen, and I just told them, you know, they must have asked me how I was, and so I told them. And they told me a story about people getting water from the well, and they'd go up this path with their buckets and they would pull water from the well. And there was this one girl who had a hole in her bucket. And so by the time she got to where they were going, all the water was gone. And the other people around her eventually complained about it. And moral of the story was that without that hole in the bucket, there would be no flowers along the path growing and blossoming. You know, so we so often focus on some objective and don't know the results of just our actions. So we have the right effort and the right intention, and the end is not necessarily something we understand. That just bubbled up in my mind. And the other thing has to do with the state of the world today. And we hear so much about taking care of your inner self and its effect on society, and that's in the precepts, and yeah, it is. And so this morning I was listening to a newscast on YouTube because I don't have TV, but the former head of finance in Greece was talking about Ukraine and the United States. Forgive me if you don't want to hear politics, and I'm not trying to make this about politics. But he said what we in America don't realize is that more than half the population of the earth, if you take all people into account, are not allied with what the United States is doing. They're more neutral, I guess. But that certainly isn't the perspective of what most of what I watch. Then he quoted, I don't think it was Lao Tzu, but it was an ancient Chinese philosopher who said, if you have a conflict with an enemy, what you need to do is build a golden bridge behind them so that they have a way to just more or less go back from where they came from, but you've built this bridge without trying to change or smash them or anything. And I said, wow, that's still here in our present day culture. That's a positive seed, and it's something non-military. It's constructive. Right effort. Because I grapple with what's going on in the world today, and it's easy to be peaceful in a microcosm sometimes, but that's all. I don't know. I'm going up the hill with the bucket of water that's leaking. I don't know where.
Yeah, but you're watering the flowers.
Yeah. But thank you so much. And thank you all for being here. It's just wonderful to spend a Saturday morning this way.
I agree with that.
Respected Thai, dear Sangha, Jeff, thank you for being my teacher. I just, I hope to be as skillful as you someday, just with the timing and the pace and the breath, the space in between, and it's so comforting. I come from, I guess I would call it the nervous side of New York, where you're not important, just get to the point, say what you're going to say and move on. And so that's inside of me, but what I hope to be as skillful as you someday, and just the patience, the comfort, it's just so beautiful. And I just when you would do the exercise was so beautiful that I was practicing offering the metta, but then what was really touching today was feeling that residual energy within, of feeling that positivity of offering kindness. It's just, thank you. It just brought, it brought that just a little deeper into me, and it's still with me now. And I hope to keep that and go keep that deepness, just like when the bell is invited to really come back to the breath, not just go into the waiting mode, but to come back to the breath. And I just, the volatility of our practice when you were going through the exercises of, when the unskillful or unwholesome seed comes up, it can come up so quickly, as you know, the volatility of our practice. I think I mentioned it before, if I may again, but there was one day when, and this was maybe 10 years ago, I was going to Sangha and driving to the Sangha, and I thought, oh, let me just get a coffee and a croissant. Really, I went for the croissant or something to eat, because where we meditated, it was so quiet that I didn't want my stomach to gurgle. Basically, that was the motive. But as I was leaving, as I was entering, you have to enter and go down this ramp. There was a gentleman with a sign, hungry or need food or money. And so my thought was, oh, let me just get you a coffee and a muffin also. And so here I am, I drive up and the window's down and I'm offering them coffee and the compassion and the muffin. And then the light turns and the guy behind me was on his horn. So here I am offering compassion and flipping the guy off behind me. It happened so fast. And so that's the volatility of our practice. And I guess what really is important is the recognition. Oh, the seed popped up, but it really popped up so quickly. And then, as you mentioned, taking care of yourself, nurturing, walking, meditation, breathing, mindfulness, time. Oh, that was just beautiful. And I gleaned from this the paradox of effortless effort in practice. It's that really, like you were mentioning, the tuning of the string. It's that where's the how much effort and how little effort, and that effortless effort. And as I think Ted was talking, beginning anew is such a skillful part of our practice of watering the seeds of others. I just thank you so much, and thank you for being my teacher, truly.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would just like to add, Conrad reminded me how much I love you going from lifting weights to ringing the bell. That was a moment. Thank you.
Welcome.
Craig bowing in. Oh, I'm sorry. You want to go, Richard?
No, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I thank you also, Jeff, and I thank the Sangha. I mean, you guys there's such wisdom here and beauty in your expression. So thank you for sharing. In my mind, I have lots of profound things to say, but they never really come out right, or rarely come out right. But Jeff, your style of presentation was great. I think your cadence is really good. And the use of props, I think you should have pumped a little more iron, but that was good. And yeah, and Michelle,
I actually had a heavier one that I tried to say, no, not too heavy.
yeah, I think that's good. And the bell was beautiful. You truly have mastered that skill. And you've also mastered the Zoom skill of turning off the noise suppression thing, because it came through really quite well. Your comment about, or somebody's comment here, maybe it was you, Michelle, talking about the reviewing. I just want to reiterate that for me, at least, no amount of review is too much, because it is, it is the proverbial onion, because you keep going deeper and deeper. I recently, just last week, was reminded of that because I got a new student in the prisoner, the Dharma study program for prisoners. And so we're starting back on, first lesson in the tree of enlightenment. And anyway, so going through that, responding to his comments was wonderful. Just going through it, because I've heard the adage before, but the best way to learn a subject is to try to teach it. And so responding to these students is, I've learned so much by doing this. I mean, I don't want to do it because I never have enough time to do it. And so I wound up taking 2 or 3 weeks and feel guilty about it. But then when I do get into it, it is really profound, as the stuff you pick up again. So anyway, review is quite helpful. The app that you mentioned from our talk before, that was Insight Timer, is the one I used.
Insight Timer.
Yeah, so I think it's free both for Android and iPads or Apple, and it's good. But it is a game, and it is kind of stupid. I know some people say you shouldn't have to do this, and yeah, I realize I shouldn't. Have
it works. It works.
But it does work. It's been a number of years and I haven't missed. So it is. I think I will continue to do that, just as as gamey as it is. The comments about assisting others, in watering the seeds, is, that really is amazing. I mean, that works so well because, and I think because it takes you out of it. So it just, you're not in the middle of things, and you're just allow, this energy to flow out and to help other people. And, we are those other people. So it is, I don't know, it includes us when we do that. And we kind of get out of our own way. Maybe that's a good way of saying it. We get out of our own way. Thank you, Dave, for the mansplaining comment. That's something that I've always done, and I thought that was a good thing until a couple of years ago when I realized it's not a good thing. Don't try to fix stuff. Yeah, so I'll check out that it's not about the nail video. That was good. Somebody made the comment about effortless effort, which really resonated with me because I know the subject of living by vow, I think, is really profound, and I think that kind of gets to the effortless effort, and it's hard to explain. But what do you do? Where do you get the energy when you don't have the energy? And it's by, I don't know, it's the effortless effort where you redefine what that is, or who's objecting to this, or who doesn't have the energy, because it is there. The last thing I just wanted to mention was something that has. I think I've probably mentioned it before, so sorry if I'm repeating myself, but as many of us have alluded to, I have had dark episodes of depression where these seeds are there, and it's just, you're in this inky blackness and nothing is good. Everything just really sucks. And it's, so in doing that, I mean, I've had this realization, like, just stopping and saying, why am I here? What is this thing that I'm experiencing now? Why do I feel this way? And then more significantly, recognizing that I didn't feel this way before. I haven't always felt this way. Why am I feeling this way now? What's the difference? And, there's probably some differences, probably mostly, physiological differences, but there are differences, maybe circumstances are different, but it just points to the fact that all of this stuff is ephemeral, and while it's happening, undeniably things are happening. They're just things that are happening. They don't have any separate self to them. So it is easy to then, a lot easier to then employ some of the strategies that you talked about, or don't focus on yourself, focus on others, or go take a walk, or go do walking meditation, or something like that. And it is, I think it's a valuable lesson for me to see the contrast. So I don't necessarily regret having these mood swings, because it just allows me to recognize that they are, even the upsides are mood swings too. So it just allows you to recognize that you are this physical self, but you are also something else. Thank you, Craig, bowing out.
Thank you, Craig.
Yeah, Greg.
Richard bowing in.
Richard.
Oh, sorry, Conrad. Did you need to speak? Having been in the military for 20 years, right effort meant a whole lot of different things to me before I really understood the Buddhist concept of it. But I mean, it really does, for me, and I appreciate you pointing this out, that it isn't necessarily, one of my first lessons in right effort was I was told in boot camp to clean the latrine. And if obviously you put some effort into it, but the point of being told that was to put as the whole effort into it and clean it just as good as you can. And so that makes it, but taking that over to our less physical effort, but also to our mental effort, it takes some days when I get out of bed, it's like, oh yeah, I gotta do this, I gotta be kind. I gotta not flip off the guy behind me in traffic, Conrad. But I realized that putting that right effort into it already, because yeah, I wouldn't have, way back when I was younger, I wouldn't have noticed that understanding that, oh, wait a minute, I probably shouldn't do that, and I probably should be kind, and I was giving the guy the coffee, and yeah, it came up all at once, but if I haven't put an effort into noticing that and understanding what seeds I'm watering and what seeds I'm not, it already, that effort of trying to go, oh man, I shouldn't be that angry, or I shouldn't be that, let me figure out something else to do. That effort is a continuation of it. It's the latrine is never really clean, so we continue to have to put the effort into it. Even though it looks clean, someone else uses it, or I use it, or whatever, and so we got to continually clean it. And I think that's part of the Bodhisattva vows, is that greed, anger, ignorance continually rise, and I vow I'm going to put this effort into not watering those seeds before, and not watering the seeds when they come up. And so you really make that point really well. I like your red and green stop and go. Okay, I'm pretty. I like that. It's like, no, yes, go. And well, and one of the other things I wanted to say is that I think I've heard you say your interpretation of gate, gate, parasam gate before. I don't know if it was in a talk or just in conversation, but I like that. And when I first heard you say that, I went, whoa. And so now every time I hear that the mantra, at the end of it all, I see Keanu Reeves going, whoa, about 700 times, because it's just, yeah. And so, but that's a way of expressing things that we need to be able to put the maximum effort into something. And if you're seeing that that's what the maximum effort is, and that's what other people are watering, and not, what's arising in them, the good things that are arising in them, that's a really whoa moment. So thank you for your insight, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you, Richard.
Janet bowing in. I have a little poem that I heard this week by Brian Andreas. I don't know if anybody ever heard of him, but this is how it goes. Anyone can slay a dragon, he told me, but try waking up every morning and loving the world all over again. That's what takes a real hero. And this is what I got out of this right effort, is waking up every morning and beginning again and being a hero. Janet bowing out.
So thank you, everyone. You have come up with many things that I did not, and it's wonderful to hear. I feel like this was a kind of a case in point, that perhaps I watered some seeds and other things, sprouted in thoughts and connections and goodness in our group here, and I've gotten so much back. So thank you, everyone.